Logo: a lion with a mane roars in a ring of golden film. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Credits appear. Mario Casar presents. A La Studio Canal, Centropolis film production, in association with Carolco Pictures, Inc. A Roland Emmerich film. The view slides over a dark stone-like surface, etched with overlapping curved lines. Kurt Russell, James Spader. Letters fade in one by one to form the title, Stargate. The view pans over embossed scarab motifs. Vivica Linfers, Alexis Cruz, Mili Avital, Leon Rippey. The view follows dark red and blue ridges, laid against panels carved with delicate knotwork. John Deal, Carlos Lochu, Jaimin. Eric Avari, French Stewart, Guinan Loeffler, and J. Davidson. The view lingers over etched designs, separated into wide horizontal panels. Music by David Arnold. Digital and Visual Effects Supervisor, Jeffrey A. Oken. Special creature effects created by Patrick Tatopoulos. Costume designer Joseph Porro. Edited by Michael J. Duthie and Derek Brecken. The view pans across gentle contours, etched with curved lines. Executive producer Mario Casar. Written by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. Directed by Roland Emmerich. The view pans down and out, revealing an elaborate headdress in the style of an Egyptian pharaoh. It frames a mask-like narrow face with high cheekbones, sculpted full lips, and a cold stare. The sun hangs low over three angled peaks of the pyramids. Text appears, Giza, Egypt, 1928. An open-top Model T Ford swerves past camels on a dusty road. On a busy dig site, a bearded man jogs down to greet the car. A white man, 60s, in a light linen suit steps out, followed by a preteen girl in a white dress. Dust swirls as they hurry past busy brown-skinned men in robes and turbans, and along a rough wooden walkway between hills of dirt and sand. They arrive at a large stone disc divided into grooved wedges. Subtitles appear. Dr. Langford, hello.
What have we here?
Coverstones.
It's fantastic.
The girl in the white dress lingers at a sorting table and picks up a small golden amulet engraved with an eye motif. She turns, taking the amulet. She tags behind Dr. Langford, who wears the linen suit, and the bearded man as they cross a walkway and pass between tents. From an elevated position, we see a crowd of men laboring with ropes. They heave on the lines, 4 or 5 men to a rope, slowly pulling at a massive rounded structure. It rises up to reveal a giant stone ring, perhaps taller than 3 or 4 men. In the crowd, the girl and men gape at it. Subtitles appear.
What in God's name is that?
I wish I knew. Dr. Langford shakes his head. Fade to black. Words appear. Present day. An elegant chandelier lights a lobby with a high ceiling. A stylish elderly white woman in a black knitted beret walks up the stairs. She passes a sign that reads, Symposium Ancient Egypt. A white man in his early 30s with blonde hair stands at a podium. From the side, the elderly woman gives a small smile. The audience rises from their seats and begins filing out. The woman slips away. Wearing spectacles and carrying 2 bags, the blond man, Dr. Jackson, pauses at the hotel entrance. As he steps out, a uniformed man approaches. In the back seat, the elderly woman flips through a file. Jackson slides into the back seat. He stares at a black and white photo through his gold-rimmed spectacles. He gets out of the car and pulls the hood over his head. Jackson stares at the papers as he stands in the rain. Now, a flat-fronted Chevrolet Caprice pulls up along a tree-lined road. A white man sporting a blue Air Force uniform and cap gets out. Inside the house, a blonde woman opens the door to the white man on the porch. The man, along with one other, remove their caps as they step inside. She keeps her gaze averted. In a dimly lit room, a shelf features toy cars and framed photos. In one photo, a dark-haired boy wears a Mets baseball cap and holds a bat. Sitting on the bed and holding a handgun in his lap, a white man in a blue shirt, with ratty stubble on his square jaw, stares into space with gray eyes. His back turned to the door, he slides the gun under a cushion. His back remains turned. Later, the two men leave the house and return to their car. An aerial view shows a car driving along a road cut into a mountainside. It pulls up at a tall chain-link gate, topped by razor wire. Uniformed guards let it through. Text appears, Military Installation, Creek Mountain, Colorado. In a lift, a dark-haired officer smiles at Jackson. He exits the lift into a functional corridor. They step through doors marked Research Laboratory. The wheel-shaped coverstone towers over them, mounted upright on the wall. The disc in the center has a cartouche, which features a vertical panel of symbols. Jackson stares up at it, his mouth open. The elderly woman, Catherine. He notices a chalkboard with symbols. Gary is a tall, dark-haired man. O'Neill arrives clean-shaven with a short back and sides, in a blue dress uniform. He leaves. Gary turns to Catherine. She catches up with O'Neill in a corridor. Words appear 2 weeks later. Jackson stops his voice recorder, then picks up an empty mug. Outside the lab, he flashes his pass at the desk officer, who reads a newspaper. He fills a coffee urn from a tap. The newspaper catches his eye. It features a photo of the night sky. He snatches it, then returns to his lab. At his desk, he studies it intently. He uses a fat black marker to trace the constellation of Orion. He climbs a ladder to the center of the coverstone. One of the symbols matches his sketch. Later, outside, a guard salutes as a convoy of flat-fronted cars drives through the gate. The cars park up, and uniformed officers step out. Clutching charts and books, Jackson sips from a mug as he follows the dark-haired officer through the tunnels. They enter a conference room filled with officers and the research staff. A white man in his 50s with a bristly mustache. He looks across to Catherine, Gary, and Barbara. O'Neill watches from the side. Daniel unrolls a giant star chart. With a stony-faced look, West glances at O'Neill, who makes a hand gesture. Catherine grins. A wall panel slowly rises up. The giant, intricately carved ring stands in a silo, mounted upright, with several inner rings on its surface. Jackson stares down at it through his spectacles. Seven complex triangles sit equidistant around the ring. In a busy control room, One of the inner rings of the Stargate slowly spins. Panels line the inner ring, each one etched with a symbol. Daniel watches the symbols slide by on a monitor. He draws. The inner track spins. One of the triangular chevrons clamps onto the symbol, locking into place. Down below, men jog out through a metal door. A filled coffee cup vibrates. Computer monitors display frantic-looking graphs. A monitor flashes a message. Sequence complete. The gate activates, and a liquid explosion punches out from the center. It recedes in and forms a shimmering skin of light inside the ring. Daniel looks rapt, his blue eyes wide. The doors open into the gate room below, and armed guards rush in. A dumpy-tracked robot with a folded claw, the Melp, motors forward and up a ramp to the Stargate. The guards fall back. The officers watch from the briefing room. The Melp trundles up a ramp toward the shimmering surface. It halts, then extends its tubular metal arm. Ripples form as it penetrates the event horizon. The whole machine moves forward, then disappears as it crosses into the water-like surface. In the control room, Barbara studies a tracking monitor. A mechanical plotter moves its crosshairs across a star map. It stops. Daniel studies the blinking crosshairs on a tiny blue point of light. The shimmer of the gate snuffs out. Grainy photos at odd angles appear. Daniel squints at the computer screen. O'Neill and West stare at the linguist. The dark-haired officer, name tag Kowalski, stares at Daniel. O'Neill turns to West. Later, Catherine enters Daniel's lab as he packs Egyptology books and Fifth Avenue chocolate bars into a suitcase. She gives him the golden amulet. He turns it over, revealing the symbol of the eye. He looks back up into her eyes and holds her gaze, then gives a slight nod. On the Stargate ramp, soldiers pack boxes onto a motorized cart. A line of armed soldiers, including Kowalski, stand to attention as O'Neill walks past wearing a beret. Daniel stands at the end of the line, sporting a combat uniform and cap. In the control room, a screen reads locked. In the silo, the heavy door opens. Shifting dappled light plays over the soldiers as they walk through. West watches from the briefing room as O'Neill leads the soldiers up the ramp. He stands before the rippling skin of light. He nods to Senior Airman Brown, a black man with an oval face, who holds up a joystick. The cart trundles slowly forwards. Holding a submachine gun ready, O'Neill follows the cart. The cart disappears through the Stargate. O'Neill approaches, his slate gray eyes showing no emotion. He steps through. A shorter, unshaven soldier kisses a cross on a chain. Daniel watches as the soldiers walk through, one by one. Now the only one left, Jackson stands before the radiant, shimmering portal. He experimentally presses his fingers into the energy field. He smiles as the surface ripples like water in a pond. Gary and Catherine watch him from the control room. He takes out his hands and looks up at the gate, then shuts his eyes. He takes a step, his face emerging from the other side. He's drawn forward, exploding into points of light. Now the view spins down a vortex. Against a backdrop of stars, the view follows a ribbon of light that weaves and dodges like a roller coaster. A blazing light. They sweep their powerful flashlights around. Daniel stands and looks up toward the Stargate, which shuts off. Then O'Neill ignites a flare. The other soldiers follow suit. The soldiers drop flares at intervals as they move forward. Daniel lingers at the gate, smooths back his hair, and puts on his cap. O'Neill stops and stares ahead. The soldiers are in a tall stone corridor with daylight at the end. Daniel glances upward at a ring shape set into the ceiling. The soldiers move into a spacious hall lined with columns, sunlight slanting through the dusty air. The soldiers advance, sweeping their rifles left and right. O'Neill pulls out and dons a pair of sunglasses. Ferretti is a lean white man. They take up positions at the entrance, with bright light and sand dunes lying just beyond. The others follow. From outside, they are dwarfed by giant sandstone walls. Daniel runs his hands across the giant masonry blocks. Outside, a broad ramp leads down, and either side are two obelisks, tall stone needles. From afar, the structure resembles a facade of a giant temple. Daniel and O'Neill descend the ramp. Daniel stares up at the obelisks towering above him, reaching into the bright blue sky. The soldiers guard the ramp, while O'Neill and Jackson advance into the desert. Out on the dunes, O'Neill turns and looks back. The temple is part of a giant pyramid rising from the dunes. 3 moons hang above, ghostly white in the blue sky. A white fair-haired soldier with a bandana activates a device that unfurls 3 small antennas. The soldiers have set up equipment at the base of an obelisk. Daniel wanders around at the top of the ramp. They stare at him through their sunglasses. He steps between them. The soldiers set up camp near a corner of the pyramid. They wear only vests, revealing their toned, athletic torsos. Brown. Daniel drags his suitcases. In the gloomy Stargate chamber, O'Neill opens a panel on the motorized cart, then draws out a dumpy metal cylinder about 2 feet high. He checks a handheld device with a green LED and slots it into the top of the cylinder. Outside, Daniel checks the pockets of his tactical vest. Ferretti and the man with the bandana, Freeman, exchange glances. Ferretti throws the suitcase over Daniel's head, which tumbles down the dune. Jackson ambles away. On the other side of the dune, he gathers spilled books from the suitcase. In the pyramid, O'Neill, dressed in a black t-shirt, assembles components of a device. He looks up and sees a flashlight beam. He finishes the device, a long cylinder with exterior struts, and packs it into the cart. O'Neill turns off the handheld device. Kowalski lingers. Kowalski collects some supplies. O'Neill watches him go with a neutral expression. Meanwhile, Jackson sits on the side of the dune and eats a chocolate bar. Near his books are a set of regular depressions in the sand, leading away. Jackson stands and stares off. He follows the footprints up the dune and reaches the top. A large yak-like beast with a hump nibbles on a sparse bush. O'Neill enters the camp. The soldiers are all busy. Ferretti and Freeman exchange looks. Daniel calmly approaches the hairy beast. It dips its wide, flared nostrils to Daniel's chocolate bar. It rears up and takes off. Daniel's foot snags on its tether and he's yanked along. A cloud of dust trails behind them as it drags Daniel across the sand. The soldiers scramble across the dunes after them. The beast jumps from one small dune to the next. The soldiers stop and catch their breath, watching Daniel and the creature get further away. Now, Daniel lies on the ground unconscious. The beast leans over, licking his face with its slimy tongue. O'Neill, Kowalski, and Brown catch up. Something catches O'Neill's eye. O'Neill and the soldiers climb a dune. As Daniel pats the beast, he notices the soldiers falling to the ground and aiming their rifles. Daniel joins them at the top as O'Neill lowers a pair of field glasses. A large pavilion tent resides in the distance, and long lines of people lead to towering outcrops of rock jutting out of the dunes. Through the binoculars, the rock face is cut into ledges connected with rough wooden ladders and swarming with people. Clad in coarse robes and headscarves of pale and dark fabric, the workers bash at the rock with staves and primitive hammers in the baking heat. One worker points to O'Neill's team atop the dune, and the other workers stop and look. O'Neill stares at a young, long, dark-haired man through the binoculars. O'Neill, Daniel, and the others start down the dune toward the camp, with the beast following. The young man stares at them. He has a beige complexion, his hair tied into braids. As O'Neill and the group approach, the young man steps forward from the staring crowd. Hundreds of people stare at O'Neill. Daniel saunters forward, hand raised. A tall, dark-skinned man stares at his golden amulet. He falls to his knees. Around him, the others bow low in unison. Kneeling figures stretch into the distance, a human wave reaching all the way to the quarry. O'Neill steps forward. The dark-haired young man glances up and immediately drops his gaze. O'Neill stops and crouches down to him. The young man rises uncertainly to his knees. Bending low, O'Neill takes and shakes his hand. The young man runs off through the pavilion. Brown holds a censer over a basket of ore. As Daniel watches, one of the beasts appears, with a fabric-covered carriage swaying on its back. The young dark-haired man accompanies the beast in escort, gesturing wildly. The beast comes to a halt. A dignified man in his 60s, with light brown skin and a graying beard, pulls back the fabric. Dressed in faded purple robes, he climbs down as Daniel watches. One of the entourage passes him a tall staff, and he approaches the Air Force team. He comes to a stop just before them and presents his staff. The workers all rise. The priestly man bows. Then, at a gesture, a line of women in desert robes steps forward, each holding a bowl. A young hazel-eyed woman stops before Daniel. He and the others lift their bowls and drink. She bows as she takes the bowl, then joins the others, walking away backwards. Daniel takes a chocolate bar from his pocket, then makes a show of smelling the chocolate. The priest points to his own mouth. Daniel presents the chocolate bar to him. The priest smells it and looks from side to side. He chews uncertainly. His eyes widen. Daniel mirrors the man's gesture. The golden sands of the desert are sculpted into herringbone ridges. The desert people march through the dunes, some holding tall staves. The long line of people snakes back through the sands. Near the front, Daniel and the others walk behind the priest. The priest stops and gestures. A city lies in the distance, the buildings simple and squared off. Brown takes a photo with a film camera. Daniel. As Daniel pockets the handkerchief, a grinning teen with a high forehead covertly snatches it. Nearby, the hazel-eyed woman grins. The young dark-haired man, Skara, snatches it away from Nabe and returns it to Daniel. Daniel looks across to the young woman, who meets his gaze then looks away. Several levels of rough wood and rope bridges connect the beige sandstone buildings of the city. The stream of returning workers moves through a massive gate made of upright logs. Inside, the city bustles with life. Daniel looks up, turning as he takes in the surroundings. People in robes and rough turbans watch as the group follows the priest into a raised area. The priest turns to them looking solemn. The priest and his people kneel, heads bowed. An embroidered cloth is drawn up by ropes, revealing a huge metal gong above, its surface etched with an eye. O'Neill grabs Daniel's amulet briefly. He addresses the priest. The crowd rises. The sound comes from a giant horn above the gate. A violent sandstorm tears through the camp. Back at the city, the priest gestures, and the massive gates slowly swing shut. The sandstorm rolls like a tidal wave toward the city. At the pyramid, the soldiers stumble into the temple hall. At night, sand whips against the city walls. Inside, people move with burning torches. A man carries a covered platter up the steps, where Daniel and the rest sit with the priest and other elders. A platter is set before him. The cover lifts, revealing a humped reptilian creature. The priest gestures. Daniel reaches forward and tears some meat from the roasted animal. He tastes it. Daniel looks across. The priest smiles. Daniel rises and crosses the circle. He takes out the amulet. He draws the symbol in the sand. The priest wipes it away and jumps up. O'Neill blows smoke from his cigarette. A group of women approach Daniel. They wrap him in a cloak and bundle him away. The young woman watches him go, long dark ringlets falling past her shoulders. Later, the women crowd around Daniel. One washes his feet, while another combs his hair. He stands. The women leave. He sits on a bed of animal skins. Someone parts the curtain. They step out of the shadows to reveal the hazel-eyed woman, wearing a dyed purple robe and veil. She removes the veil and stares at him fixedly, her dark ringlets spilling down her shoulders. His mouth opens as she slowly pulls back the robe, revealing her bare shoulders. She blinks tearfully. The priest waits near the door. Daniel hugs her close and closes the curtain. The priest stares, mouth agape. Inside, Daniel sits her down. He puts the amulet inside his shirt. She smiles. He draws a triangle in the sand floor, and she looks away. He stands. He peeks behind the curtain. While his back is turned, Shaori leans forward. She smooths away part of his drawing, then extends the horizon of the pyramid and adds a circle above. He looks back and stares at her. He points at his eyes. Then she points at her own and nods. He holds out his hands to the woman. At the pyramid, Ferretti stalks over to the entrance and stares out at the night and the sandstorm. Outside, a low shot of the looming pyramid. A beam of dancing light illuminates the point. Inside, the men look around. Dust spills down from the ceiling. Freeman turns on a flashlight, illuminating a piece of shaking equipment. Outside in the gloomy storm, something crests above the giant pyramid. Something composed of enormous metal panels slowly descends. Inside, the men look up. The structure outside slowly descends and settles over the pyramid. In the temple, the men take up defensive positions, dust spilling around them. Outside, lightning arcs around the giant structure. A giant shape descends over the pyramid, encompassing its shape perfectly. Inside, the tremors knock the men off their feet. A giant panel in the structure slides in, locking into the pyramid. The base of the new structure, a giant metal pyramid, glitters with lights. The soldiers move back through the main hall, sweeping their weapons around. A view moves through the gloomy hallway at the side. Then it moves around a corner and advances on a soldier. He falls. Another soldier sees the body pulled away. He slowly turns, then, his rifle ready, Freeman slowly advances. Freeman advances, covered by Ferretti. Freeman peeks around a column. He sees Ferretti across the hallway. Freeman advances to the next column. Ferretti stops in the middle of the hall, scrambling for more ammo from the salvaged gear. Freeman drops. Ferretti reloads, then our view approaches him stealthily. He drops, then stares up. A muscular humanoid stands over him. with clawed hands and decorated forearm guards, its head a jackal-like mask with blue glowing eyes, the Egyptian god, Anubis. In the city, O'Neill lights a cigarette. Skara's mouth falls open. As O'Neill demonstrates, Skara cautiously approaches. He sits on a ledge nearby. Amazed, Skara catches it, and O'Neill mimes lighting it. Skara points at the box of cigarettes. He takes one and puts it in his mouth. He lights it. Looking across, he copies O'Neill's hunched, reflective pose. He studies O'Neill, who takes a long drag. Skara sits back and draws on the cigarette. O'Neill looks across with a slight smile. Skara stomps out the cigarette. O'Neill drops and grinds out his own cigarette, and Skara offers the cigarette lighter. Skara smiles and nods. He reaches for O'Neill's rifle. O'Neill snatches it away, and Skara bolts. O'Neill sits back down and sets the rifle aside. Meanwhile, Kowalski and Brown look across from the adjacent room. O'Neill looks troubled. Underground, Daniel holds a burning torch. Daniel and Shaure break into a gloomy hallway of rough stone. He helps her through the hole. As Daniel shines the torch, he sees the Earth symbol painted on the wall. The flickering torchlight reveals more hieroglyphics. The woman watches as he runs down the lines of writing. He points at a symbol. She nods. Elsewhere, someone drags Ferretti along the ground. He blinks as he passes a looming bronze statue of a hawk. He's flung face down, then his muscular captors kneel before an altar. Ferretti looks up. The altar, which resembles a resting sarcophagus, splits into blocks and panels that slide back. Parts of the structure sink into the floor. A human figure rests within a cavity. One of Ferretti's captors notices him looking. In the city at night, Brown plays with the radio. Elsewhere, Skara shows the lighter to a crowd of young men. They crowd back in. Nabe reaches out a finger to the flame. They look across to see Kowalski and O'Neill conversing. Kowalski salutes and leaves. O'Neill notices the group, who are in the beast corral. He approaches. They mirror him. The group copy him as he holds circled fingers to his eyes. Skara. Skara reaches for Daniel's jacket. At the corral, he holds up the jacket to the flared, flat nose of one of the beasts. They release and follow after the beast. In the cavern, O'Neill finds Daniel and Shaure sitting together at a wall. Skara and Kowalski follow close behind. Kowalski shines his torch over a dusty cartouche etched with writing. He brushes away dust and sand. In the dim morning light, the 4 Air Force team members leave the city. Daniel looks back at Shaure, who wears a headscarf. Daniel looks back one last time. Shauri turns away. Now, the team walk along the ridge of a dune, their figures silhouetted against the horizon. Skara and the group of young men and boys follow covertly, crawling along the dunes. The giant ship, a segmented pointed structure, completely encloses the pyramid. O'Neill, Brown, and Kowalski take cover at the summit of a dune. O'Neill looks through binoculars. The temple entrance is still clear. Brown passes Daniel a handgun. The others follow O'Neill, who rises to his feet and jogs toward the temple ramp. Skara watches from behind a dune. O'Neill runs up the ramp ahead of the others. He enters the hall and discovers the scattered equipment on the floor. The team follow, using pillars for cover. O'Neill crouches and picks up a spent shell casing from the floor, then takes cover. Outside, young men and boys scramble up the sand dune that spills around the side of the temple. Inside, O'Neill sees a hawk-like shadow on the opposite pillar. He ducks back and glances across to Brown. Outside, the group boosts Skara up to a narrow opening. Brown steps out into the hall, weapon raised. He goes down. Daniel sees him blasted into the wall. Skara flinches as he watches. O'Neill grabs Daniel as Kowalski goes down. They duck into a passage. O'Neill lights a flare. O'Neill stands before the mechanical cart and takes the device from his pocket. O'Neill opens the compartment. Above, the ring in the ceiling divides into segments and opens. Then, a series of rings levitate down into a stack. A figure materializes within. Daniel points the gun as the rings retract upward, revealing Anubis. 2 other warriors, both with bronze hawk heads, stand behind him. Anubis points a staff at them. Its tip crackles with energy. Daniel lowers the gun. Later, Daniel and O'Neill materialize in a beam of light inside another stack of rings. Anubis presses a blue gem on his wrist guard. The light shuts off, then Daniel and O'Neill look around. Anubis pushes them into a spacious room with a raised throne at the end. Outside, the top tier of the ship divides into 4 panels that retract downward. From inside, Daniel watches the panels draw down the angled walls, flooding the room with sunlight. Bronze pillars taper along the room's edges. Statues of hawks flank the throne, their wings swept forward. Daniel and O'Neill move forward. The throne sits at the base of a broad staircase. The guards strike the backs of O'Neill's and Daniel's knees, and they fall. Then, a large door at the top of the stairs opens, revealing an elevated disc bearing the Eye of Ra. A group appears, A figure at the center wears a large mask-like head, resembling an Egyptian funerary mask. They slowly descend the steps. The group consists of young children and teens wearing loincloths and jewelry. The masked figure, Ra, wears a cobra-like headdress. His dull eyes, high cheekbones, and thick lips are sculpted into an imperious sneer. Ra stands before the throne and sits regally. Subtitles appear.
You were sent here to destroy me.
Two servants set down a stretcher containing O'Neill's device, then step away. The children stare back, expressionless. Anubis presses a stud on the side of his mask. Panels of the mask fold inward and sink into the necklet, revealing a man with high cheekbones and a sneer. One of the hawk's masks retracts, revealing a black man with a shaved head. On the throne, Ra's mask folds away, revealing a young androgynous teen with slick black hair and a beige complexion. All the warriors kneel. O'Neill glances to his left. He punches Anubis and grabs the staff, then blasts one of the guards. Daniel crumples. O'Neill turns to face Ra, but the children gather around him, forming a shield. O'Neill hesitates. Anubis knocks O'Neill down. Anubis lays into him with the staff. Ra rises and steps from the dais. Anubis lowers his head and drops to his knees. Ra stares down at O'Neill, then at the warrior. Ra's eyes glow briefly. Ra approaches Daniel's corpse and fingers the golden amulet. Now, in a dark room, a hatch opens in the ceiling, and O'Neill is thrown inside. Kowalski. They're up to their chests in water. The two men look up as the hatch closes. Anubis glances down through the grating. O'Neill stares at Kowalski. Outside, two small fighter craft fly from the pyramid. Skara's group explore the Air Force camp. Seeing the ships, they scatter and hide. Skara drags Nabe behind a tarp. The ships speed toward the city. The priest looks out, eyes widening as crescent-shaped ships sweep in, sleek, fast, and forward-swept. The tribespeople run as the massive gates swing closed. Golden bolts of light slam into the buildings. A child is lost in the confusion. Someone snatches the child away as the priest tries to organize his people. A blast knocks the priest off his feet. Dust swirls through the air. Another tribesman falls to the ground. The weapon pods on the ships close, and they whirl and swoop away. Skara and the others come running to the city as dust and smoke fill the air. A man carries a dead child along one of the bridges, and steps over a bloody corpse. Skara makes his way through the chaos. He finds Shaori, face bleeding, tending to a young girl. Subtitles.
What happened here?
Ra punished us.
Why?
What happened to Daniel? What happened to Daniel?
The young man swallows and looks down. He gets up and leaves as Shaori begins to shake. The priest uses his purple robe to cover a corpse. He looks up and meets Skara's gaze. Subtitles appear.
Son, we should not have helped the strangers.
Dusk falls. In Ra's ship, Daniel bolts upright. He finds himself sitting in Ra's sarcophagus. Steam rises around him as he looks around. He touches his stomach where he was shot to find no sign of injury. Daniel gets out as the panels of the sarcophagus slide back into place. One of the child courtiers stands at the entrance holding a cat. Daniel looks across, and the child leaves. The sarcophagus closes. Daniel enters a large room through 2 red drapes. Ra stands, his back turned within a ring, surmounted by a canopy curtain. Subtitles Daniel. I was dead. Ra sneers. Subtitles Ra.
That is why I chose your race, your bodies so easy to repair.
Ra stands surrounded by the children as they dress him.
You have advanced much, harnessed the power of the atom.
What are you going to do?
You should not have reopened the gate.
Ra is now dressed in gold and cream robes.
Soon I will send your weapon back to your world with a shipment of our mineral, which will increase your weapon's destructive power 100-fold.
Why would you do that?
I created your civilization. Now I will destroy it.
He rises. A courtier fits him with a yoke-shaped ornament, clasping the neck of his robe together. He steps down. As he glances at Daniel, the whites of his eyes glow briefly.
But before my workers question my authority, you will prove that I am their one God by killing your companions.
And if I refuse?
Then I will destroy you and all who have seen you.
Cat-like and imperious, he looks at Daniel.
There can be only one Ra.
He rips Daniel's amulet from around his neck. In the rock corridors beneath the city, Skara approaches Shaori, who stands with a burning torch.
Ra has called an assembly. An execution.
I want you to listen.
They step forward and others crowd behind them.
We can't let this happen. I want you to know what Daniel told me about where our people came from and why we can no longer be slaves.
Ra's throne sits atop the temple steps, looking down upon a vast crowd of tribespeople on the sands. Sporting the ceremonial mask, Ra spreads his arms, and the tribespeople rise. Halfway down the temple ramp, the 4 soldiers stand looking up toward the throne. Below, Skara and Shauri push through the crowd. Expressionless, Daniel is led from the temple. Anubis offers a staff. Daniel takes the staff. Anubis points to the prisoners as O'Neill looks up at him. The massive crowd watch from the sands below as Daniel steps forward holding the staff. In the crowd, Skara covertly holds O'Neill's silver lighter, which catches the sun. The light catches Daniel's attention. O'Neill notices the light playing on Daniel's face. As Daniel slowly marches down the ramp and points the weapon at O'Neill, his eyes flick to Skara, who reveals a hidden rifle. Ra watches from the throne as the weapon pod on the staff opens. Daniel spins. He fires at Ra but misses, blowing one of the guards off their feet. In the crowd, the rebels fire their weapons into the air, and the soldiers run. Shauri cloaks the soldiers in tribe garb. The guards fire into the crowd. Freeman lies on the sand, smoke drifting around his body. The tribespeople scatter in all directions. Ra rises from his throne. Moonlight shines over craggy peaks. Cloaked figures enter a smoky cave. Skara.
To our victory. We recovered your weapons.
O'Neill and the others sit around a fire. Kowalski holds a bowl of water. Kowalski stares at O'Neill. O'Neill stares into the fire. He sneers at Daniel. O'Neill gets up and leaves the fire. In Ra's ship, the others flinch as Ra backhands a follower.
Where are they?
Anubis turns to a guard. Anubis. Answer.
We looked everywhere. Some kids are helping them.
A guard replies. Daniel makes his way through a rocky passageway and finds O'Neill sitting alone. Skara approaches and Daniel stands aside. As Daniel watches, Skara crouches next to O'Neill, offering a bowl of water. In Ra's ship, a cabinet opens and Ra's slender fingers slide into a hand ornament of wire filigree. Gold energy crackles across it, a red jewel set into the palm. Ra turns to two warriors who both kneel. The boy king looks down his nose at them. At Ra's gesture, one warrior stands. Ra touches the warrior with his hand, and the man is sent flying across the room.
I will not accept failure.
Ra rounds on him solemnly. The guard sits up. Ra reaches down and touches his jeweled hand to the man's forehead. Ra's eyes close as gold energy plays over the man's face. The man shudders, his eyes rolling up into his head. The other warriors and followers watch as the man collapses, blood leaking from his nose and ears. In the cavern, Daniel holds something over the fire. Why are you laughing? Nabe answers, Husbands don't do this work. He looks around, baffled, and sees Shaure retreat into the adjacent chamber. Daniel follows her, then finds her grinding grain on a flat stone. Nabe peeks after Daniel with a grin. Daniel sits beside Shaure, looking into her eyes. Married?
Don't be angry. I didn't tell them.
Tell them what?
That you did not want me.
He stares at her, then reaches out and touches her chin. She looks at him. Then Daniel reaches forward and draws her into a kiss. Skara watches with a smile. Nabe grins, then Skara draws the canvas curtain across. The next day, the wind blows the golden sand across the dunes like mist. In the cavern, smoke curls from the dead fire. Skara scratches a design into the rock. A triangle with 3 circles above. Daniel looks up. What are you drawing?
The day of our victory.
Daniel stares at the circles, the moons above the triangle. He approaches and crouches beside Skara. Kowalski sleepily shambles in. Day, at the mine. A hawk-headed guard approaches an ailing worker. The workers pull out guns. O'Neill points a staff. Kusuf looks across, his mouth open, subtitles Kusuf.
You'll bring disaster to all of us, son.
Father, we will not live as slaves.
Kusuf kneels, and the other workers follow suit. Take a look at your gods. The elaborate headdress folds away, revealing the face of a man. Take a good look. Kusuf rises, eyes narrowed. The other workers rise. Kusuf looks down at the unmasked warrior, a black man. Ra's ship. He wears elaborate robes rising to a disc behind his head.
The caravan is approaching. Send the bomb down to the Stargate.
Anubis. 2 warriors pick up the device resting on a stretcher and carry it off through silk curtains. Outside, a pair of warriors flank the temple entrance as they watch the approaching caravan. The warriors with the bomb travel through the ring transporter. They stretcher the bomb into the gloomy Stargate chamber and ascend the steps. Outside, Skara stands with a beast, looking toward the temple entrance. A party of workers struggle with a heavy pallet of stones up the temple ramp. The 2 warriors set the bomb on the ground near the Stargate. Outside, Shaure glances across to O'Neill as they haul the pallet up the ramp. They keep their heads bowed as they pass the guards. Ferretti and Skara watch from below. Inside the temple, the 2 guards shepherd the workers in their burden. Another guard stops them. The guard tears the head covering off one of the workers. The guard unhoods another worker, then the next one. He winks. Daniel drops, pointing a handgun. The warriors are pushed back, and one of the tribes falls dead. Outside, Kowalski and the others run forward. Inside, O'Neill blasts a warrior with a weapon staff. Kowalski and the others charge up the temple ramp. Slowly, the temple door drops. A blast sends them toppling back. From inside, O'Neill watches the door close. He sets his jaw and steps out, aiming the weapon staff. A warrior drops. 2 fighter craft leave Ra's ship. The fighters curve around toward the group on the temple ramp. Plumes of smoke rise as the fighters straight the sand around the temple. Inside, outside, he runs forward. Ferretti breaks cover, firing up at the fighters. The others follow down the ramp. Kowalski and Ferretti tip the pallet to make a barrier. Elsewhere, Ra plays a game against one of his followers. He sweeps the pieces aside. Subtitles Ra.
Send the bomb to Earth now.
I will send it myself. O'Neill runs into the Stargate chamber. He lifts the bomb from the stretcher and sets it upright, as Daniel and Shaori enter. He slides the detonator into the top. Shaori turns. Shaori falls. Daniel blasts the warrior with the staff, then runs to Shaori's limp body. Frantic, he leans over and checks her breathing. She lies still, eyes closed. Daniel looks desperately to O'Neill. In Ra's ship, Anubis strides up the steps toward the teleport dais. He stands and presses the blue jewel on his wrist guard. The giant rings descend one after the other, in the Stargate chamber. As the aperture in the ceiling opens, Daniel lifts Shaori's body. He holds her as the rings descend around them. He disappears. O'Neill looks back toward the countdown timer, then back to see the masked Anubis. In Ra's opulent ship, Daniel carries Shaori's body up wide steps. He discovers Ra's open sarcophagus, shining with light. Daniel gently lowers her into the cavity. The mechanisms surrounding the sarcophagus slide and close around her. Daniel looks down at her. Meanwhile, 4 minutes remain on the timer. O'Neill hits Anubis's armor, and his headgear folds up. Anubis throws O'Neill over his shoulder. On the floor, O'Neill grabs Anubis's weapon and pulls. As they both tug on it, Anubis smiles and breaks the staff. Outside the pyramid, one of the fighters strafes the temple. The rebels dash down the ramp through clouds of smoke. Wearing the army helmet, Nabe hangs back. He hesitates, then makes a dash for the barricades. The fighters sweep around and fire. Smoke billows around Nabe as he runs. Nabe runs in slow motion. Skara bares his teeth as the helmet flies out of the smoke from the explosion. The helmet rolls to a stop. Kowalski fires at a fighter passing overhead. A golden bolt penetrates the barricade. Kowalski discards his empty rifle. Skara passes him another. Kowalski drags Skara down as more of the rebels are hit. Meanwhile, Anubis rakes his jeweled claws across O'Neill. O'Neill gets up, dodges a kick, and pummels Anubis with his fists. The countdown reads 3:17. On the ground again, O'Neill reaches for the detonator, but Anubis grabs his hand. Outside near the pyramid, Kowalski climbs the barricade and waves his arms. Skara tries to hold him back, but Ferretti pulls the young man away. The fighters roar over Kowalski's head. In Ra's ship, Daniel watches as the intricate carved panels of the sarcophagus slide open. Shaori lies motionless inside. Daniel lifts her arm and picks her up. He dashes up the steps. Outside the pyramid, Kowalski and Ferretti surrender to the guards. and the rebels slowly joined them. Dressed in ornate robes, Ra sees Daniel run past 2 columns. Daniel ascends the steps to the transporter, then he gently lays her down. Ra approaches. Subtitles appear.
I am no longer amused.
Ra presses a palm against Daniel's forehead. Anubis flings O'Neill against the wall. The timer counts down from 2 minutes. Rallying, O'Neill lunges at Anubis and strikes him over and over. In the ship,
You will die together.
Daniel shakes as energy sparks around him. O'Neill drives Anubis back. He slams Anubis on the ground and holds him down. O'Neill triggers the transporter. The heavy rings descend, crushing Anubis' neck. As Daniel spasms, the transporter activates. Daniel frees himself and yanks his amulet away. The rings enclose him and Shaure. Below, Anubis' body is transported away. In the ship, Daniel disappears. The rings rise into the ceiling, revealing Anubis' decapitated head. Ra bares his teeth. In the Stargate chamber, O'Neill stares at Daniel and Shaure, and then looks back at the bomb, which rapidly counts down from 1 minute 54 seconds. He strides over and flips a switch. The timer continues from 1 minute 44 seconds. O'Neill frowns and examines the bomb, then yanks the detonator. It continues, 1 minute 35 seconds. Outside, Scar hangs his head and kneels with the rest of the rebels on the sandy ground. 2 guards point their weapons. Kusuf stands at the top of the dune. He brandishes his staff. From the dunes, a horde of dark shapes appear. Hundreds of the tribespeople run forward. The guards look around, revealing them to be surrounded. Rebelling workers line the dunes. Ra watches from the window on high. The priest gestures with his staff, then runs forward. His people surge after him like a rising tide. The rebels rise from their knees. One of the guards fires into the crowd. Some tribespeople are sent flying through the air, but the rest charge forward through clouds of smoke. The priest rushes forward. One of the guards swings his weapon like a club as he is hemmed in. Skara and Kowalski watch from atop the barricade as a guard vanishes beneath the chaos. Ra sweeps away from the window. The crowd hoists up a guard, then Skara holds up his arms. Ra presses a hand to a panel of light, causing the exterior panels of the ship to slide upward, sealing up the pyramid shape. Skara and the crowd look up to see the pyramid-shaped vessel slowly rise. Skara walks forward, looking up, his eyes narrowed. In the chamber, the timer reads 40 seconds. Daniel and O'Neill look at each other, and then look to Shaure under the transporter. They see Anubis' gauntlet. High above the planet, Ra's pyramid-shaped ship slowly ascends. Inside, the ceiling aperture opens and blue light shines down. The rings descend, and Ra makes his way over. Ra stares at the bomb with 6 seconds remaining. As the countdown runs, Ra's face dissolves, revealing a wizened alien with a 4-petaled mouth. A blazing light burns above the temple in the blue sky. In space, Ra's flesh disintegrates like ash. Above the planet, the blazing explosion contracts. Then, a shockwave blows out and fades. Now outside, O'Neill looks out at the massive crowd. Daniel and Shaure stand at the temple entrance holding hands, as Skara makes his way through the crowd. O'Neill watches as Skara ascends the ramp. O'Neill looks quizzically at him, squinting in the bright sun. Skara solemnly gives the U.S. military salute. Other rebels walk up and salute, followed by Kowalski and Ferretti. Grinning, Kowalski salutes, and Ferretti does the same. O'Neill salutes back, holds the salute for a moment, then completes it. O'Neill smiles and looks across to Daniel and Shaure, who tilts her head and leans into Daniel. Then she and Daniel kiss. In his faded burgundy robe, the bearded priest, Kusuf, raises both hands, then punches a fist into the air. In the watery glow of the Stargate, O'Neill and Skara shake hands. Ferretti turns to Daniel. He steps forward, Kowalski. Kowalski steps forward. Wearing his beret, O'Neill pauses next to Daniel. He glances towards Shaure, who smiles back. The two men shake hands. He drops the amulet into O'Neill's hand. O'Neill stops at the rippling portal and turns back. He steps forward, dissolving into particles. Our view shoots down a vortex of light that weaves like a roller coaster between stars. The words, "the end," come toward us. Described video by AudioVault. Original script written by Brett Coolstock. Original script blind QC'd by Robert Kingett. Voiced and edited by Kyle Warwick-Mathieu. Other voices by Jackie Boire, Brett Coolstock, Anthony Nemi, and Adam Sotelo. Remaining opening titles: Production Designer, Holger Goss. Director of Photography, Carl Walter Lindenlaub, BVK. Co-producer, Uta Emmerich. Produced by Joel B. Michaels, Oliver Eberly, Dean Devlin. Cast of characters: Colonel Jonathan Jack O'Neill, Kurt Russell. Dr. Daniel Jackson, James Spader. Ra, Jay Davidson. Catherine, Vivica Linfers. Skara, Alexis Cruz. Shaure, Mealy Avital. General West, Leon Rippey. Lieutenant Kowalski, John Deal. Anubis, Carlos Lochu. Horace, Jaimin, Cassif, Eric Avari, Lieutenant Ferretti, French Stewart, Nabe, Guinan Loeffler, Lieutenant Freeman, Christopher John Fields, Lieutenant Brown, Derek Webster, Lieutenant Porro, Steve Gianelli, Assistant Lieutenant, David Pressman, Officer, Scott Smith, Sarah O'Neill, Cecil Hoffman, Barbara Shore, Ray Allen, Gary Myers, Richard Kind, Mitch, John Story, Young Catherine, Kelly Vint, Professor Langford, Eric Holland, Foreman Taylor, Nish Wilder. Credits roll. Stargate is a trademark of Le Studio Canal Plus. Copyright 1994, Le Studio Canal Plus. All rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication is prohibited. The story, all names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this motion picture are fictitious. Any identification with or similarity to actual persons, living or dead, or to actual events is purely coincidental. This motion picture is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Any unauthorized exhibition, distribution, duplication, or reproduction of this motion picture or videotape, or any part thereof, including the soundtrack, may result in severe civil and criminal penalties. Le Studio Canal Plus is the author and creator of this motion picture for the purposes of copyright and other laws in all countries throughout the world.